Rad Racer. Yeah, alright racing game for the 80s on the NES. But 1987, Square. I mean, no one in America picked up on that yet, since Square's biggest franchise didn't start until later that year in Japan, and even then, not in America until 1990. So, and by then, well, I can't speak for everyone, but as for me, I may have still been playing this game occasionally, but I didn't really pick up on the Square idea until years later, looking it up online and, hey, wait a minute, Square? Okay. Yeah. December 1987, or summer 1990 here in North America, the first Final Fantasy game. Square's first big hit video game as a developing team. Unfortunately, this NES original is a mess of bugs and spells that didn't work and stats that didn't apply. So, yeah. I mean, I do have some nostalgia for it, but if you are going to play the original, see the response right down there? Yeah. You do not want to leave that at 1, or random battles will take forever. I'm not even going to bother really naming these. For one, they only have 4 character limits, but I mean, I played this a lot back in the day. It was only my second RPG following the first Dragon Warrior game. And I played a lot of it over the next 14 years. But, yeah. So, I do have some nostalgia for the music tracks like this one. Or this one. But nostalgia alone is not enough to make me want to play this, for many reasons that I'll go into as I play through the game. No, for this playthrough I will be doing the GBA remake, released in North America in November of 2004. I started playing this in early '05, and ever since then this is the version I play whenever I do play this game. I mean, it has since been ported to the PSP and several other the new Pixel remaster, but I still prefer this version of the game for this one. There's also predating this remake. There's also the PS1 remake along with Part 2 as Final Fantasy Origins, but I didn't really care too much for that one as it had a lot of the elements of the original. So, anyways, let's get started. Of course, this one also, like the PS1 Final Fantasy Origins, this one also comes with Final Fantasy 2, which I will be doing a playthrough of sometime. But for now, the original game. Then I switched. Then I said that. New game. Choosing your party. Kind of novel idea back then. I mean, granted, I've never played every RPG, but the one I had before this, the first Dragon Warrior game, there wasn't even a party to choose from. It was just you and you alone throughout the entire game, fighting only one enemy at a time. Dragon Warrior 2 did have a 3-member party, but yeah, in the original they weren't as useful as they would be in later remakes, but here your party is whatever you make it basically. You have job classes to choose from. Granted, there is no class change like later games. You know, you're not going to be able to have a white mage that can change into a black mage and learn black magic along with its healing spells, or vice versa. That didn't come until later games like Final Fantasy 3 and Final Fantasy 5, or Dragon Warrior 3, or Dragon Quest 7. But yeah. Anyways, as for this game, Warrior, Fighter, Knight usually has the best HP and defense and can equip the best weapons and armor. the tank basically put. So you want at least one of them unless you're doing some kind of challenge minimalist playthrough, then maybe not. For this version of the game, you can hit the select button to go through a bunch of pre-chosen names that are usually names of people and places in other Final Fantasy games like Baron Castle from Final Fantasy IV, or Argus, I think is Final Fantasy III. Yeah. One name stands out in my mind though, if I can get it to show up on this list. Okay, now because I want to show it, it ain't going to cooperate. Of course, any other... There it is, Eris. As far as I know, there is no Eris in Final Fantasy. Granted, I haven't played any of them since 10.2. 10.2, ruined my interest in Final Fantasy for years to come, at least the new games. But yeah, in all of fictional entertainment, movies, TV, novels, video games, the only Eris I can think of is the old 1984 animated cartoon series Voltron, Planet Eris, Castle of Lions, etc., etc. But anyways, for the purpose of this playthrough, I will be naming them after the main playable hero characters of other Final Fantasy games. Like, for example, from my favorite Final Fantasy game, second favorite game of all time, Final Fantasy VII, Cloud. And by the way, I had wanted to do a playthrough of Final Fantasy VII, but right now I'm having recording issues with that one, so until I can sort that out, do this one instead. But anyways, Thief. Now, a lot of fans love the Thief job class or the Thief ability. And to be completely fair, you know, like in Final Fantasy VII, you can steal like a striking staff for Eris or carbon bangles for everybody from enemies long before you'll be able to buy them in shops. And in some games, the thief can open treasure chests or unlock doors that you otherwise need keys for or wouldn't be able to get to at all. But in this game, originally anyways, his attribute was making it easier to run from random battles, or so I've heard. But the evasion stat, like many other aspects of the game, was bugged, so it didn't matter. But for this playthrough, since I've never been a big fan of the Thief job class anyways, Red Mage, kind of a 3-in-1, fighter, Black Mage, and White Mage, can learn most of the good magic spells. Kind of bottoms out late game, but by then, yeah, he'll have enough of the strong weapons, have enough of the earlier magic spells to accommodate for that. Anyways, yeah. And as for names, from my second favorite Final Fantasy game, now I know in the Super Nintendo fan translated ROM, the name they gave him was Butz, B-U-T-Z, ha ha, hardy, har har. Butt jokes galore with that one. But no, in both the PS1 version, which was the first version of the game to be released stateside in 1999, and the Game Boy Advance remake that I'll be playing when I do get around to that game, his name is Bartz. Much better. Anyways, now, you want at least one White Mage for healing spells, especially late game. The White Mage has capability of some healing spells that even the Red Mage can't use. So, as far as names, now if I were thinking traditional Final Fantasy White Mage, like Rosa from Part 4, or Eris from Part 7, and yes, by the way, I know canonically her name is supposed to be Aerith with the TH at the end, but I don't care. I've played the original Final Fantasy VII on PS1 so many times where her name is misspelled Eris with an S, that to me her name will always be Eris. Say what you will, I don't care. But anyways, I mean, I know Final Fantasy VII don't really have designated job classes and stuff like that, but if they did, Eris would be the closest thing to a White Mage in that game, since most of her limit breaks are healing, and her typical weapon is a staff. So, but no, again, sticking with the idea of the main playable character. And I know some could argue that the main character in Final Fantasy VI was Terra, but you usually don't play as her. You usually play as Locke in that game. So, Now, in my opinion, if you're playing the NES original, stay away from the Black Mage. I'd either use, like I always had the last mini replays of the original before this version came out, I'd either have a second Red Mage or a second Fighter, Knight, Warrior, one of the two. Black Mage can use a lot of good magic spells, sure, but in the NES original with those flawed spell charges where you never had more than 9 uses of any spell without replenishing them, which was impossible in dungeons. Once the MP was gone, he was basically useless, at least until later in the game when he could find a better weapon to use. So, yeah. But in this version of the game, with these silly spell charges being replaced by typical MP, so the magic issue isn't a thing anymore. Black Mage it is. And as for names, well, overall I'm not a big fan of the game in general, but from Final Fantasy IV, the game that does have a lot of good music tracks, and one of the first RPGs to have a somewhat decent story, at least amongst the ones I've played anyways. Gameplay is kind of bad in my opinion, but that's a matter of opinion that most Final Fantasy fans would scoff at, seeing as how so many of them hail Final Fantasy IV as one of the, if not the best in the series. I can't say I agree with that sentiment, but you're right to your opinion, to each their own, fair enough. Moving on. Cecil from Final Fantasy IV, or Cecil, I don't know, I've heard it pronounced both ways. Anyway, there's my party. Let's go. Cutscene. Backstory, which was not in the original. The NES era games did have some cutscenes like Ninja Gaiden or the opening of Dragon Warrior 3, but nothing like this. I mean, let's face it, the NES didn't make its mark on video game history for the technology. The NES, as far as technology goes, was outdated by the end of the 80s with the Sega Genesis being 16-bit. But the NES made its mark in gaming history because of the games, Zelda, Metroid, Mario, etc., etc. Not because of the technology it had to offer. Of course, that same thing can be said for all Nintendo consoles throughout the company's history. They've oftentimes used less powerful technology to keep production costs down and therefore keep consumer prices down. At least that's what's always been said. And it is true, a Nintendo console usually costs a lot less than a Sony PlayStation does. So, anyways, crystals. Of course, are orbs in the original, but more about that later. And the music track here is good, but again, I have some high level of nostalgia for the NES original world theme music, but oh well, not enough to play the game. Alright, now, buying weapons and armor. I really wish they had that in the original. My first playthrough, I wasted so much money buying weapons and armor only to realize after I'd already paid for it that it was worse than the one I already had. Sure, you could sell it back for half your money, but you still lost half of the price in the exchange, so yeah. And yes, I know the instruction manual was like a strategy guide for the first half of the game, which in the days before the internet was quite a novel idea. Back then you couldn't just look it up online. Strategy guides or instruction manuals were the only way to go, but unfortunately for me, by the time I even saw a copy of the instruction manual for the NES original game, I was already well into the second half of the game, where the instruction manual kind of stops its coverage, so to speak. So yeah. Reason being, well, I'll get into that as I'm grinding a little later, something to talk about then. But for now, yeah. Could buy weapons for them, for the Black Mage and White Mage, but their strength and attack power is going to be so minimal it ain't really going to matter too much. So, And the NES original, this was called a wooden armor, which always made me wonder how comfortable could it really be if it's made out of wood. Anyways, now in this game, like most RPGs, weapons and armor do not auto-equip, which, as I think I mentioned in my Dragon Warrior 1 playthrough, was a lesson learned the hard way. You know, I started playing this in the summer of 1990, within a month or two after its initial North American release. I remember going to a video store, looking at the box art, and thinking, hey, this kind of, the back where they show pictures of the screen capped gameplay, thinking, hey, this kind of looks like Dragon Warrior. I think I'll try this game. Liked it ever since, but rented it, bought it, brought it home, and bought the weapons and stuff just like I did just now, and then went out to fight my first random battle, and promptly got my butt kicked because I didn't realize that you actually have to equip the stuff in this game. Of course, this is a major convenience over the NES original, where each party member had their own weapons and armor spots, so you had to go through it one by one individually to equip their gear, as opposed to this. Granted, in Square's or Nintendo's defense, the NES didn't have L or R buttons on the controller, so they couldn't really program it like this. You know, a case of doing the best they could with what they had to work with, I guess. Still, much more convenient equipping weapons and armor for everybody this way. And for magic spells, which for me at the time was quite a change of pace, so to speak, because in the first Dragon Warrior game, the only RPG I played up to this point, you learned your magic spells via leveling up every so often. At level 3, you learned the heal spell. At level 4, you learned Hurt, 7, Sleep, 9, Radiant, so forth and so on. You learned them from leveling up. You didn't have to buy them. Then you play this game and, oh, you mean I ain't going to learn magic spells with experience level ups? Oh, okay. Anyways, Dia, or Harm in the original, like you see there at the bottom of the screen, deals damage to undead enemies, and only undead enemies, which there's a fair share of them, so it's worth it, but yeah. Of course, ironically, the Dia spell here is the only level 1 spell that will multi-target enemies. The fire and lightning spells at level 1 will not, and there's nothing you can do to change that. In some games, you can, like when you're selecting what enemy to target with the magic spell, you hit left or right on the controller and you can go from one enemy to all enemies, or like Final Fantasy VII, equip an all materia linked to an elemental attack materia and goes from one to all, but here, no, that never changes. Level 1, except for Dia here, level 1 magic spells will not multi-target. Takes some getting used to, I guess, but okay. Fire spells, I want that. For sleep spells, I don't care for them. Because 1, the stronger enemies seem to be resistant to them, and 2, on a personal level, just something to be said for putting an enemy to sleep and then kicking it while it's already down. Makes me feel dirty, like a cheap coward or something. I mean, I'm not saying anybody that uses sleep spells is cowardly. I'm just saying it's the way it makes me feel. Personally, just me alone. You know, a lot of people like their sleep spells in games, and that's fine. If it works, hey. But me, again, I just feel dirty for doing that. I know I'm overthinking it, but still, just a little personal setback that I always have problems with. In any RPG that has sleep spells. I mean, even the first Dragon Warrior game where you learn it at level 7, I never use it, as you saw in my playthrough of that game. The part where you fight that golem guarding Cantlin Castle. I leveled up enough to where I can beat that thing without sleep spells. Yeah. Anyways. Okay, now, I don't have any money left for, well, I have $4, not enough to buy anything, but here's the clinic for reviving dead party members, which in the original for the first half of, well, maybe not quite the first half of the game, but until you got up to experience level 12, I think it was, where you could purchase level 5 magic spells. That made it to that point in the game, about a quarter of the way through the game, actually. Places like these were the only place you could revive dead party members. In this version of the game, though, well, as soon as they had Phoenix Down potions. Granted, they cost a ton of money, especially early on where you don't have a lot of money to work with in the first place, but still a nice addition. Anyways, let's talk to people. Oh yeah, by the way, before I do that, another thing I like about this version of the game that the original didn't have. Well, granted, I can't really show it because I don't have any money left to buy any of them, but you can actually buy multiple, buy in bulk. 10, 12, as many as you want at a time as long as you have the money for it. Where in the original you had to buy them one at a time individually. God forbid you wanted to buy all 99 potions you could carry, you'd be mashing the A button for at least a few minutes or so it seemed. Good God, talk about tedious. Anyways. Provoca. Okay. Why did you move? Ooh. Let's hope we don't have to go there. Okay. Okay. Screw you, game. If I want to be dirty, that's my problem. Mind your own business, man. I feel insulted. No, I don't. I'm just kidding, but... Nope, sorry. I'm not a dancer, dude. Yeah. Restore the elemental crystals of water, fire, earth, and wind. Typical RPG fodder these days, but of course at the time in 1987 or 1990, not so typical. Granted, Final Fantasy 1 here, Final Fantasy 3, Final Fantasy 4, the side game Mystic Quest, and Final Fantasy 5. So by the time you get to Final Fantasy 5, the whole idea does seem a little bit overly done and cliched, but for now, hey, it works. Rescue the princess. Dude, that's usually, this is an 80s, early 90s in North America game. Rescuing the princess was something that involved beating the final boss and seeing the end credits, dude. I mean, yes, I'll do that, but it's going to take a while. I've barely begun this playthrough. Finding the crescent moon. Dude, that's not hard to do. Just look up at the night sky. Oh, well, fine. Anyway, that's about all people have to say around here. Of course, I don't know why they made it a necessity. It was suggested that you talk to the king of the realm, but you didn't have to. Here, yeah, that exit and all of the other, well, there is no exit on the west side of town, but the north exit, the east exit, and the south exit are all barred by guards that will not let you out of town until you do. I mean, it's a small gripe, don't get me wrong, but still something I can't help wonder what made them think it was, why they made it necessary all of a sudden, when originally you didn't have to. Yeah, apparently we do, from the opening cutscene. Oh, there they are, yep. Yeah, exactly. Listen to your chancellor, dude. Dude, with all due respect, how did someone as gullible as you get to be king? I mean, how do you know we didn't kill your so-called warriors and steal your crystals from them? I mean, you're kind of gullible there. Just because we have crystals, you think we're some chosen warriors? Really? Wow. Again, how did someone as gullible as you get to be a king? I mean, for that matter, how do you even know they're real crystals? They could be fake. Anyways, Sarah, the princess's name, was just S-A-R-A. No H at the end in the NES. Why they decided to add the extra letter for this, I don't know. It's kind of silly, but alright. Garland? Judy Garland? No. Okay. The Chaos Shrine, or Temple of Fiends in the original NES. They attempted to, but they failed. Wait a minute. If your best warriors couldn't fight this guy, what makes you think we can? Personally, I don't think he cares. He saw us coming and said to his chancellor, hey, see these travelers entering our kingdom? We'll make them fight Garland. If they win, we get our princess back. If not, well, we never knew him anyway. It's not like we'll miss him. Or something to that effect. Well, gee, thanks, King. I like you too. Not. Again, if this guy's so strong, what makes you think we can stand up to him? You don't care, do you? Yeah, eventually. Well, the continent you're... Yeah, that's far north. This bridge isn't going to get us there. I don't know what you're talking about, dude. Okay. So yeah, obviously, like the first Dragon Warrior game, rescuing the princess is not the last thing you do. It doesn't involve beating the final boss. Alright, talk to some of the people here. In the NES original, there was an invisible man standing right where I am now. You could stand here, face him, and hit the A button. You could talk to him. He'd basically say something to the effect of the princess was looking for you, which always made me wonder, one, how does she know who we are, and two, how does she even know we're here? Of course, they just removed him entirely. They didn't make him visible, they just removed him. Yeah. Common tale in mythology, in stories, be it novels, movies, whatnot. Yeah, she shut herself in her room. They fixed that dialogue. Originally it was she locked herself in, even though this door was never locked in. Another name respelling. In the original NES it was just Jane, no Y in the name. I mean, I used to joke with some of my 80s hard rock friends that they respelled the name after the LA Guns Ballad of Jane. I mean, I know that's not the case. It was just a joke amongst other hard rock fans of the 80s, early 90s, but still. Anyways, now follow this path here. Leads to the upper right corner where there's a couple doors, but they're locked. You need a special key to open them. That contains a key. One of them contains a key item for later. Can't do anything with that right now, so let's just leave. And if you've already bought all your gear, start grinding. Or you could just go to the first dungeon if you want. Now, Another one of the reasons I could never go back to playing the original version of the game is for each and every random battle throughout the entire game, you had to sit here doing this because there was no auto targeting. And if one party member killed the enemy, anyone else targeted to hit them would just hit the open space that they once occupied, wasting their turn. I mean, yes, the argument in favor of it is that it adds more strategy to it, and yes, it kind of does, I give you that. But given how many random battles you had in the game, to have to go through this each and every time just, in my opinion, got too tedious. And if you like it the old way, like I've just been showing, it's still a possibility here, so hey, have fun. But again, with how many random battles you fight through in this game, I don't want to milk each and every one of them more than needs be, so yeah. Auto-targeting all the way. Level up already, huh? Yeah, it's one thing I like about this game. You all have the same experience table regardless of what job class you are. So when one levels up, they all do. At least until you win a random battle with the dead party member or petrified party member. The dead one or the statue one don't earn experience for that battle, offsetting that synchronicity. But until then, yeah, 22, 20, 22, 20. And about the leveling up, by the way, anybody familiar with the NES version of the game, that probably will remember that you needed 40 points to reach level 2. We did it with 22. And you needed 190 to reach level 3. We'll get there with 42 points. Yeah, you need less experience points for each level up. Main reason for that being, I'm sure, is in the NES original, the max level you could achieve was level 50 if you had the time and patience to grind that long. Here it goes all the way up to 99, one level shy of twice as many. So naturally they spaced it out a little better, needing less points for each level up. But to say that that makes the game easier because you're leveling up faster, I don't necessarily see it that way. For one, note the strength of the fighter, Knight, 11. Momentarily going back to the NES original again. Yeah, by the way, see, after, well, yeah, in this version of the game, there's nobody stopping you from leaving. You don't have to go talk to the king, as I was just saying earlier. So why they suddenly made it a mandatory thing in the remake, I don't know. But anyways, that's not the point of coming back to this original again. Look at strength, 20. So yeah, right from the beginning, the fighter has twice the strength in the original that he does in the remake. So yeah. So yeah, for anybody to say that because you level up faster makes the game easier. Again, 11 strength versus 20. I don't think so. Plus, mages don't learn their levels as fast, or don't level up their magic ability as fast. In the NES original, a white mage or red or black mage at level 5 could use level 3 spells. Here you need to get them up to level 8 to be able to do that. Looking at a little table I made as I was grinding for levels in this. In the NES original, your white or red, white or black mage could use level 4 magic spells at experience level 8. Here you need to be at level 12 for that. So yeah, long story short, mages don't level up their magic ability as fast as they did originally either. So yeah, for anybody to say that because you level up faster makes the game easier, I don't necessarily think so myself. But A, there are ways that this version of the game is a little easier than its NES original counterpart, like for example the always popular not Final Fantasy enemy Cockatrice does seem less likely to petrify you with this version of the game, at least in my experience. I mean, it can happen, yes, but nowhere near as many times. Again, at least not in my experience anyways. And two, later in the game, in the NES original, there was an enemy known as R, short for Red, R Gargoyle, that could cast Fire 2 spells, doing massive damage to your entire party in one swoop. God forbid you met a group of 4 or 5 of them. Your party could be barbecued in a matter of seconds. Just ask YouTuber Pro Jared, who did a playthrough of the NES original several years ago now. Yeah. But in this version of the game, that same enemy, now known as a Horned Devil, casts a mere meek level 1 fire spell that does minimal damage to only one party member at a time. So yeah, they definitely nerfed that enemy, no doubt about that. So yeah, there are ways that this version of the game is easier, you know, Phoenix Down potions and whatnot, and other quality of life upgrades. There are ways this version of the game is easier than the NES original. But then again, who really cares? I mean, why are we judging games by their difficulty level anyways? I mean, I'm sorry, I've just never, whether it's this game or any game for that matter, I've never understood that mindset. Rating games higher than others because of how difficult they are, or rating games lower than others because of how easy they are. I've never understood that mindset, and I never will to my dying day. Who says an easy game can't be fun? I mean, look at most Zelda games. You know, the earlier ones were a little difficult perhaps, but from like Ocarina of Time onwards, although most of them were all great games, don't get me wrong, they were a tad bit a little too easy as far as difficulty went. Still fun to play though. So yeah, I've never understood that idea of judging a game or rating a game by its difficulty level anyways. Now, as I do a little on-screen grinding, finding something to talk about, my history personally with this franchise of this game, like I said earlier in this playthrough already, and in my Dragon Warrior 1 playthrough, this was only my second RPG I had ever played right after Dragon Warrior 1. Yeah, but I started, like a lot of games in those days, on rental time. Reason being, you know, summer 1990. Well, you only need to look at my music channel, Greg's Retro channel, to see how big a fan of the 80s hard rock era I've always been. Rat, Motley Crue, Stryper, Dokken, Twisted Sister, etc., etc. An era which was still alive and well at the time. So most of my extra spending money was going for concert tickets, tour t-shirts, cassette copies of the latest albums, Metal Edge magazine, and a lot of the other hard rock heavy metal magazines of the era. By the time all that was said and done, who had money left to buy video games? Certainly not me. Rental time was my way to go for gaming, which went well. You know, when it was like Rygar or Castlevania or Contra, you know, games that could be completed in one rental period. But then you get to games like Final Fantasy and Dragon Warrior, which, yeah, you needed to rent them a second or a third time, and hope that no one rents them in between and erases your save file, which, yeah. Happened to me like 5 times before I finally broke down and bought my own copy of the game. But by then I was already past the midway point like I hinted at earlier, so the instruction manual / mini strategy guide that came with the game, yeah, I didn't see it when it could have been useful, you know, yeah, because of the lawsuit Nintendo had posed against video game rentals about instruction manuals and copying them being copyright infringement. If someone rented a game and either honest mistake, forgot to return the manual or decided to keep it for himself, and given how deluxe the manual was for this game, I would bet someone intentionally kept it for themselves, especially since there was no internet in those days, blah, blah, blah. So anybody that rented it from then on didn't get the instruction manual, like me. Yeah. Now, also, sorry for the personal nostalgia flashback for those who don't like that kind of thing, but since in my Dragon Warrior 1 and Dragon Warrior 2 videos, some of this stuff I talked about may be a little contradictory. I want to clear that up a bit. Like I said, I started with the first Dragon Warrior game, then went to this one. Later in 1990, started playing Dragon Warrior 2. In those days, I was running from as many random battles as the game would let me. Which is why, my memories of the NES original Dragon Warrior 2 were so dim and bleak. Not necessarily because of bad game design, but because I was running from everything and therefore making it to higher areas, later areas, under-leveled. Creating a nightmare for myself. It wasn't until one of the dungeons later in this game that I realized how helpful leveling up could be. Time-consuming, yes, but very helpful for making things a little easier. And ever since then, yeah. I don't mind grinding, like I keep saying, in Twitch chats and YouTube videos alike. But by the time I realized how helpful grinding could be, I had already completed and completed Dragon Warrior 2 and refused to ever play it again. So, I mean, it took about a year to complete this game because of being stuck at a few spots in the game, puzzle and forward progression wise. Plus the aforementioned renting it, having someone else rent it before I could rent it again and erasing my save file. And when I finally did buy my own copy of it, even I ended up erasing my own file accidentally. Because, while the battery backup was a nice touch, nice improvement over the passwords of older games where O's could look like zeros and S's could look like 5s and 6s could look like capital G's. Passwords that could be like 30 characters long. With one character mistyped, the whole thing was shot. So the battery backup of Zelda, Final Fantasy, Dragon Warrior was a nice touch, nice improvement. It also came with the message on screen in most of the games. Hold reset as you turn the power off, which I very rarely ever did. And I'd go replay the game and, shoot, my file has been deleted. Yeah, so... with all of those setbacks, it was already into like July 91 by the time I actually completed the game for the first time. Anyways, alright, one more level for now. Actually, I'll be right back. Alright. Loaded a save file from a previous playthrough a couple of years ago where I had a lot more free time on my hands. Not having a job at that point in time yet, yeah. Anyways. Now, I know, level 10, really? Already? Yes, drastically over leveled. Ask me if I care. But, when I did this, I wasn't thinking experience levels. I was thinking finances, $3,327. which will be very useful a little later when we get to the, to the next couple towns. With the armor, weapons, and magic spells costing more. Be able to get a head start on that. So yeah. But yeah, I'm gonna be over leveled for a good half of this playthrough. So yeah, that's just the way I like playing RPGs. If you haven't noticed that already from my Dragon Warrior 4 or Dragon Quest 9 or Etrian Odyssey 2 playthroughs, you're gonna notice it on this one, that's for sure. Again, reason being, with the amount of random battles you fight in an RPG, I just refuse to make each and every one of them more annoying than they need to be. Anyways, I mean, if you want the more strategic playthrough, using more buffs and debuffs and whatnot, then these playthroughs are probably not really your thing. I mean, I say that with all due respect. You could possibly, yeah, with all due respect, but yeah. Anyways, this cave was not in the NES original. One of the bonus dungeons for this version of the game. And I think they're in the PSP remake as well, but of course I can't do anything in here until I find and defeat the boss that that's a statue of. But even when I can, I mean, it's a nice addition to the game, don't get me wrong. Bonus content that wasn't there in the original. But in my opinion, they're not done too well. Like this one, for example, there's 4 bosses at the end. And if you want to fight all 4 of them for item drops or bestiary completion, you have to go through this 5-floor dungeon 4 times, 1 for each boss. And I'm sorry, but that's where I draw the line. If I have to go through the same dungeon 4 times in one playthrough, screw that. Twice, maybe. 3 times at the most, but 4? No thank you. Even 3 times is pushing your luck in that regard. Once at first and maybe go through it a second time a little later when you get items from later dungeons accessing new areas like the Deku Tree dungeon in Ocarina of Time with that Skulltula token, stuff like that. But even there you're not going through the entire dungeon, I mean, just certain parts of it. That's not quite the same thing either. Anyways, the Chaos Shrine, or Temple of Fiends originally. Undead enemies. Could use your Dia spell if you have them. Eh. Leather cap. Eh. Only 1 defense, not that big a deal. 1 defense point increase is not going to be too noticeable in battles anyways. Of course. Oh yeah, these guys. Gigas worms. Originally known as creeps. Yeah. Take that, you creep. And that. I mean, it was probably due to the character limitations for enemy names, but still. Creep? How generic. Gigas Worm. Not too creative, but a step in the right direction over creep. Anyways, there are a couple of chests on the eastern side or right-hand side of this dungeon. But you need a special key found later in the game to unlock those doors, so let's ignore those for now. and just do what we're here for. Okay, what's with the stereotypical horned Vikings hat? Viking, whatever. Garland again. Well, we're actually seeing him this time, not just hearing about him. About time he noticed us. Yeah, we've heard about you. Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, he's not that tough anyways. Recommended, suggested level 3. But again, now it's just a suggestion, not a requirement. Now, yes, I know I've heard all of these statements, all of the comments. I will knock you all down. Mistranslation for I will kill you all, or something more sinister. And that it may very well have been. But the one problem I have with that is if that's the case, why is it still here in this version of the game? You know, long since the days where Nintendo so vehemently censored violence and sexual content and religion from their games. You know, why isn't the original dialogue been restored? Since that seemed to, if you ask some fans, that's why they rename everything in games, trying to bring back the original planned name. So, yeah. I will kill you all. Yeah. Besides, I don't have as big a problem with it as some people do. I mean, yes, you know, I'm against censorship, sure, but, you know, in this case, understanding Nintendo's backstory and their rise to success and how because of the video game crash of 1983, North American video game interest outside of arcades was null to non-existent. Nintendo tries to bring the Famicom to North America in October 1985 to very little to no success at all. People are like, what? Home video games? Nobody plays those anymore. Go get an arcade and, you know. So, to get their systems into stores, they had to rename it the Nintendo Entertainment System and come up with Rob the Robot, you know. It's an entertainment system. It's a toy. It's for kids. It's not video games. That kind of thing. Yeah. Which succeeded. They got into Toys R Us. 1987. Metroid, Zelda, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, Kid Icarus all come out. And the rest is history. Nintendo makes their mark on the video game industry, revitalizing it. And the Nintendo becomes one of the best-selling consoles of all time for years to come. But with that success, you know, it wouldn't have been good PR relations to somebody say, oh, well, you know what, we're not all ages, screw that. So they kind of inserted open mouth and inserted foot. They had that reputation they had set for themselves to live up to this day, and yeah. Anyways. Of course, fire spells work great against this guy if you have them. Yeah. Notice the difference between a red mage fire spell and a black mage fire spell. That's because the intelligence stat actually works in this version of the game. In the NES, it didn't. A red mage attack spell would do almost the same, if not the exact same amount of damage that a black mages would, since the intelligence stat was bugged. But yeah. Also notice, if you were adding up, noticing the damage we dealt was well over 100, meaning he'd already be dead, as he only had 106 hit points in the original. But in this version of the game, every boss has more hit points than they did before. Some even have more attacks than they did before. Still rather easy though, which is understandable for a first boss. Yep. Don't mention it. Really? Wow. Okay, she's gonna walk back with us, alright. Whoa. What? Yeah, don't get used to this. Unfortunately, this is the only time you'll have instant transportation like that. I mean, you do get an exit spell later in the game, but that just takes you out of the dungeons. You don't have a return spell like in Dragon Quest games here, unfortunately. Which one of the things I wish Final Fantasy games did have, that and a repel spell. Okay. Yeah, far to the north. I mean, heck, even if we could get there now, even at my levels, the enemies up there, yeah, I'd be no match for them. And him having this bridge build is not going to get you up there. So, yeah. Which again is just as well, given how strong the enemies are in that area. Victory music. Yeah, I already talked to her. Well, actually, her dialogue probably changes now. But... Okay. Well, let's leave. What? Oh, good God, I hate this. I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. What am I talking about? Well, let me read my opinions on this into the dialogue she's about to speak. Sarah, this loot, which you will not use for any reason whatsoever until you're into the final dungeon of the entire game, has been entrusted to the princesses of Cornelia for many generations. When he abducted me, Garland took this loot, which is going to spend 90% of your gameplay serving no purpose whatsoever, but I'm giving it to you now anyway, as well. Yeah, I hate it when they do this in games. Giving you an item that you're not going to use until towards the end of the game, but they still give it to you early on. I mean, luckily it isn't too common an occurrence as far as I'm aware of. The only other game I can think of right offhand that they do that in is Majora's Mask with the Ode to Border Ocarina song, but still, I mean, in their defense, I can kind of see what they're going with that. I mean, they're probably thinking that by the time this loot she's about to give you here will be needed, who's going to think to come all the way back here and talk to her again, you know? So they just gave it to you now and be done with it, but why not have somebody else give it to you, if that's the case? And the main problem I have with this goes back to my first playthrough. By the time I got to the point where you need this item, I frickin' forgot I even still had it, which is another one of the reasons why it took me so long to complete the game. Getting to that point where you need this, forgetting I still have it, looking all over creation, trying to find the item to open that. Yeah. So yeah, I hate that. I mean, I can see where they were going with that, but still annoying nonetheless. Well, this cutscene was not in the original. In the original, the screen panned up there like that to show that the bridge was completed, and that was it. This cutscene, something similar to this, was in the PS1 remake along with 2 as Final Fantasy Origins. But again, I only played that version of the game once. It was too much like the original, so I figured as long as I'm going to play this, I might as well just play the original. Of course, this came out a few years later. Haven't really touched the original since. Well, we need to be able to cross since we can't swim in video games. At least not the older ones. Well, we're about to leave, so if you want to see us, you better hurry up. You might want to stay at the end to revive hit points and magic points, since the game doesn't automatically do that after boss battles. I mean, they did in a lot of the cases in Final Fantasy VII, but not here. Of course, unlike the original, by the way, in this version of the game, staying at the end does not save your game. It did in the original. So after nearly 15 years of playing the original, I just got into the habit of, oh, I need to save my game, go stay at the nearest end. So then I started playing this version of the game, taking my Game Boy Advance to work with me and playing during work breaks. Spending a work break, grinding levels. Oh, half hour's up, I need to get back to work. Stay at the end thinking I saved my game. Get back home that night, think I'm going to pick up where I left off. And what happened to those levels I just raised? And only then realize, yeah, in this version of the game you saved it. Yeah. Wish I'd known that a little earlier, but oh well, I guess. Alright, so now we head north across the newly completed bridge. Of course, there was a scene similar to this in the original, but it was pretty much just on a plain black screen with text boxes. But like a lot of the dialogue, just mash the A button and you can skip through it in a matter of seconds. Here, like a lot of the dialogue in this version of the game, blah 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 blah. You talk too much. Yeah. Of course, there was also a scene similar to this in Final Fantasy IV on the Super Nintendo, released as 2 here in America. But anyways, in that game, when the main character Cecil and his friend Kane left Baird Castle for the first time. Anyways, let's skip this. Sorry if anybody's trying to read that. And what's with this? Why did they have to put that there? I mean, they think people were going to forget what game they were playing? Or were they just that proud of their title screen? Anyways. Of course, could go up that way, but at this point there's really nothing to do up there, so save that for later. Okay, I don't remember them having as many hit points originally, but okay. course, there's a lot I probably don't remember about the original, not having played it in so long. No, we made it to the next town. Well, almost. Now, from here, hold on a second. If you follow the path this way, it leads to a peninsula pointing northward, the infamous Power Peninsula, where the top two squares, because of the way the enemy domains are boarded off, has enemies from the northern continent that the king mentioned earlier. Doubles as a great place to level grind a little later in the game, but not now. Those enemies right now will kick your with no fire 2 or harm 2 spells. The enemies around here are suffice enough as it is, without trying to fight those enemies up there yet. Anyways, more about that peninsula a little later. For now, the next town. Uh-oh. We were warned about this place. Yeah. Really? Where are they? I don't see any pirates around here. Of course, this is a clinic where you'd revive level 2 magic spells, which I don't really care for. Most of them were bugged and didn't work in the original. And Null Shock did, but like all of the Null Fire, Null Shock, Null Frost, they did work, but there's always the chance that from the time you select this spell to the time it was actually cast, the elemental attack that you were trying to protect yourself against was already used against you to its full extent. You know, too little, too late. Gee, thanks, game. Anyways, level 2 black magic spells. Ice is about the only one out. The rest of them, again, either didn't work at all or were ones that I didn't care about in the original. I mean, I'm sure they fixed it in this version of the game, but still, after so long of having them bugged and not work right, I just never bothered with them to this day. Now, one of the things I do miss about the NES original is in the next town there was a very strong weapon, but it's not there in this version of the game, so yeah, as a somewhat of a substitute. I mean, if I'm playing the original, I don't waste my money here buying these, but oh yeah, by the way, notice the music track that plays here. Bears a striking resemblance to another Game Boy Advance game released around the same time this was in late '04, early '05. Yeah, the Minish Cap, one of the Zelda games for the Game Boy Advance. To me, the third best game in Zelda history, topped only by Breath of the Wild and Ocarina of Time. But Castor Wild Swamp area. Again, maybe not the exact same song, but pretty close to it. And yes, I will be doing a playthrough of this game at some point, since it's my favorite handheld Zelda, and one of the top 3. And so yeah, I will be doing a full playthrough of this game at some point. But for now, just something I've always noticed, how the track playing here is somewhat similar to the one in the menu screens of Final Fantasy. Yeah. Again, I don't know. Maybe it's just me hearing similarities where there aren't none. But yeah. Anyway, I just thought I'd point that out since I've always thought it was kind of interesting. Anyways, after your long trip out here, it might be, under normal circumstances, might be a good idea to stay at the inn to recover hit points and magic points. As there will be a boss battle here, but first, Ether Potions. Very nice touch, making it possible to restore magic points in dungeons, where in the original version of the game you never could do that. And to be honest, one of the main reasons I could never go back to playing the original again. I mean, I know, a lot of fans would say it made the original more challenging. And I say, phooey. You know, difficult, yes, but for the wrong reasons. Difficulty in an RPG should be based on how hard enemies are to defeat, even with the full supply of magic points. Difficult because they cast buffs and debuffs on themselves or on your party. Limiting your magic supply is just cheap design. Difficult for the wrong reasons, like early Castlevania games with the knockback into instant death pits. Yeah. Cheap difficulty, manufactured difficulty. Screw you, developers who came up with that. So yeah, lack of Ether Potions. One of the main reasons I could never go back to playing the original version of the game again. Anyways, with that pointed out, these guys, who don't seem to be causing much of a fuss, are just minding their own business here. What's the big deal? Just because they're pirates? Awful tough talk for someone who isn't going to fight us himself, but have his lackeys do it for him. Think so? Well, in the NES original, these guys only had 6 hit points each, making them, in terms of hit points, making them the weakest enemy in the entire game. The only thing is that there's 9 of them, so it's a little... 22 in the NES. Yeah. Those two pirates would now be dead with 15 damage and 22 damage, but again, all bosses have more hit points in this version of the game. So. Yeah. See that you don't, or we'll be back here again. Oh, we get a ship. Cool. Gonna need it to get to the next part of the game. Granted, in this game, having a ship isn't quite as cool as in Dragon Warrior games, where so much of the world opens up for exploration. To me, one of the highlights of a Dragon Quest game playthrough is the moment you get your ship, realizing how much exploration you can now do with it. Here, not so much so. Because you can only get off your ship, or you have these harbors or docks graphically. You can't just get off your ship anywhere and explore like you can in a Dragon Quest game. Almost anywhere. I mean, granted, you can't get off your ship where there's mountains along the coast, but anyways, we sail south, east, or west rather. Probably want to take those out first since they can paralyze your party members. Like so. Oh, you dirty rats. Okay, come on, Cecil. Stop wiping your nose and get moving. Thanks a lot, Cecil. Okay, good. Got rid of them. Elfheim. Now, as I was hinting at earlier, in the NES original, the weapon shop here, instead of the weak saber weapon, had what was known as the Silver Sword. Cost 4,000 bucks, a hefty sum at this point in the game, but its attack power, well, was unmatched for the first half of the game, which is probably why it was moved further ahead here. It's still available, just you can't get to it yet. This is why I bought the broadswords back in Pravoka, or Pravaka, whatever, instead. Anyways, one thing I want to point out before buying any magic spells or whatnot. Here lies Link. From what Zelda game? Yeah, I don't know why they changed this. In the NES original, it was Here Lies Erdrick, 837 to 866, R.I.P. Yeah, Erdrick, the legendary hero from the first 3 Dragon Quest Dragon Warrior games. Even then, Square and Enix were referencing each other's games. Of course, now today they're 2 halves of the same company, Square Enix, but yeah, kind of interesting, history-wise. Fire 2. And yes, I know it says Fire for later, Faraga, Faraja, blah blah, yeah. Call it what you will, it does the same thing. And in the NES, in the original of all of these games, even up to Final Fantasy VII, it was Fire, Fire 2, Fire 3. So that's what I'll be calling them. Heal, Heal 2, Heal 3, Ice, Ice. You get the idea. And of course, I still think it's kind of funny we're calling the lightning spell Thunder. You know, not naming it after the lightning itself, but the sound effect created by the lightning, the thunder. Anyways. Fire 2. Random battles just got a lot easier with spells that can now multi-target and do more damage all around to begin with. Now with the Fire 2 and the Harm 2 spells, there is one enemy up in the northern Power Peninsula that would be easy to defeat, but you'd probably want to be at least level 6 in the 6 or 7 in the original, so you'd have a couple uses of them. Well, this ain't a good example since there's only one enemy here. Oh, come on. Sure, I get a magic spell that can multi-target enemies, and now you only give me one enemy at a time. Screw you, game. Oh, really? Where are all the multiple enemy attacks that I had before? Okay. Yeah, see? Only one at a time. To all of them. Cool. Well, of course now it's not going to, but anyways. Alright. Loaded a save file from a previous playthrough again. Now, again, I did make the disclaimer that at least the first half of this playthrough is going to be drastically over-leveled, so much so that I'll probably refer to that in the title of this video, Final Fantasy 1 Overleveled or something to that effect. But yeah. Now, I know, level 33. But the reason for that, one, I like grinding, as you can tell, over 3 hours of it, you know, at this point in the game. And two, I was thinking, grind up to extremely high levels now, and then I won't have to worry about it for pretty much the rest of the game. Save for maybe a few more levels just before fighting the final boss. But up until then, yeah, as long as I don't run from too many random battles, which I have no intentions of doing anyways, yeah, won't have to grind anymore. At least that was the thought process at the time. Now, I'm gonna go back up to the Power Peninsula, edit the trip out there, out. Alright, well, at least back up here again. Here, just go up or north. Of course, again, you want to be at least level 6 or 7 in the original, so that you had a couple uses of the Fire 2 and Harm 2 spells. But yeah, these top 2 squares, you fight enemies from that northern continent barely visible from here. These guys, of course, can be a little frustrating early on, since they're really not weak to fire spells as some of the other enemies here will be, but and they can hit for a ton of damage, especially if they hit your black or white mage. So yeah, early on they can be rather annoying. Look at that experience. More than any other enemy at this point in the game. Well, most other enemies at this point in the game. And look at that. Again, more than most other enemies at this point in the game. Okay, not the enemy I'd hoped to see. Which is the potential problem with this peninsula grinding here. The enemy that is the easiest to kill up here is just one of a few that you could possibly encounter here. Oh, come on, game. Okay, here we go. Granted, there's only 3 of them and not 4, but Minotaur zombies, or zombos as they were called originally. Since they're undead enemies, fire and harm. Again, look at that experience. That gold total. Cool. Of course. Well. Of course, these in-game bestiaries are basically just glorified checklists, as I said in my Portrait of Ruin playthrough. I think I did anyways. Yeah, the enemy only shows up after you've already defeated it. So if these are meant to be like a strategy guide, and they fail, since by the time you've already defeated it, so you know how many. Yeah, you pretty much got an idea how many hit points it has and what its stats are. But anyways, of course they're kind of misleading. 1,050 experience for one, or for a group of 4 of them, but only 1,050 gold or gil for one. Why list the experience for a full group and only the gil for one? Kind of confusing if you're not aware of it. But it's not just these in-game bestiaries that do that. Even printed ones in strategy guides or websites do the same thing. Of course, note, treasure, great axe. Something they added to this remake that originally wasn't there. Item drops from enemies. That didn't come until later Final Fantasy games. Yeah. Anyways, 94 of them while grinding up here earlier. 130 of those guys, which have frost breath attack, which can be devastating early on, especially if you get a group of 5 or 6 of them and they all do that. Holy crap. But again, look at the treasure drop, ice shield, an item that you normally wouldn't have until near mid-game, normally. And grinding up here can be useful once you're strong enough to survive it, but the amount of experience and gold you get unmatched for this point in the game elsewhere. Of course, the common argument against it is that it's a glitch not meant by the developers to be a thing. But yet it's in all of the versions of the game I've ever played, so yeah, go figure. Just be warned, just know that if you don't grind here, it's going to take a little longer. I mean, potentially it could anyway, because the chance of getting killed off is very... Party wipes are very possible. That's why, like in the NES version of the game, I have a handful of tents and cabins and stuff that could save my game up there. Anyways, of course, it seems to have been removed from this version of the game, but in the NES original, while on your ship, if you hit the A and B button like 55 times, you brought up a number slide tile puzzle. Arrange the numbers 1 through 15 in chronological order. The prize you got was determined by how fast you could solve the puzzle in. Which to me was kind of pointless because it was always just items you can buy in shops. Could have just bought the item by the time you solved the puzzle anyway, so... Like I said, I think they removed it from this version of the game. At least I've never been able to bring it up. Yeah. Anyways... Now again, I have a lot of money, but that's from over 2 hours, close to 3 hours of grinding in the Power Peninsula. 3,300 golds from one battle, 35 from another. It adds up after a while. For armor, under normal circumstances, an iron shield would be an upgrade for your fighter, but since I already have the ice shield from the Frost Wolves, yeah, there's still an upgrade for your white and black mage if you have one. Likewise, that for your fighter. Here at the item shop, Gold Needle Soft Potions, cures petrification. Of course, I bought way too many. I'm probably not going to even need half of that. But memories of one of the later dungeons where cockatrices are a common enemy. And in the original, the likeliness of them petrifying you seemed to be much higher, like I said earlier. Yeah. Of course, it would be a good idea to have at least a couple of them, of these items, for later, because this is the only shop that sells them for quite a while yet. So yeah, you won't need them right now, but by the time we get to the first major dungeon of the game, it's a slight possibility, but still a possibility nonetheless, that from the third floor on down, cockatrices could be an enemy. You'll see. Level 4 spells, which in the NES original you had to be at experience level 8 for your white mage and black mage to use them. In this version of the game it's level 12, or level 13 rather, for level 4 magic spells. Sleep 2. I've already mentioned my thoughts on the sleep spells in RPG, so let's not go there again. Haste or fast. Yeah. The only status affecting spell that I ever bothered buying in the original, or this version of the game for that matter. Kind of like oomph in recent Dragon Quest games, or at least along those same lines. Ice 2, yeah. Poisana, or pure, cures poison, which always brought up the argument, do you want the magic spell or the item? If you're playing the NES original, you probably want the item. Heal, cure poison party members without the magic points. Save those MP spell charges for other magic spells. In this version of the game where the magic spells, MP is more balanced out, I still like the potions, but Fear and I think were bugged in the original. No Frost work, but like I said before, there was a chance that from the time you select the spell to the time the white mage or red mage actually cast it, too little too late. The Frost Wolves or Frost Dragons or whatever it is has already used their Ice Breath attack on you. Gee, thanks, game. Anyways, I don't know what will happen now. What are you talking about? In other words, come back and talk to him at some point later and his dialogue will be different. When exactly that is or what his dialogue changes to, that I don't remember. General rule, especially in older RPGs, mithril weapons and armor are some of the strongest for the first half of the game. Well, actually, the castle he's referring to is northwest, but there is one person there. He just tells you where you're supposed to go next and what you're supposed to look for when you get there, which, back in the day, playing the game for the first time, without the instruction manual or with the absence of the internet, was how you'd figure that out. Of course, if you already know that, then there's no reason to go there, at least not yet. What? Whatever, dude. Another one of those guys. That makes two of them in this town. Help him with what? Come on, you're as bad as that guy in the last town. If you want our help, you can at least specify what you want our help for or with. What does he need help with? What's his problem? Oh, gee, never mind. I'll go find out for myself. Who's Astos? Oh, okay, now we're getting somewhere. Sleep spell. Okay. Of course, you have to do this. This isn't some side quest. I mean, argumentatively speaking, there is a quote-unquote side quest later in the game. But I'll go into detail on that when it becomes available. For now, yes, I know, I've heard all of the jokes about this dialogue. What? He's been sleeping for 5 years. How is he, how is he still alive? How has he been eating? How has he been going to the bathroom? Blah, blah, blah. Dude, it's a story for a video game. It's not a college essay on the laws of physics in reality. I mean, come on. I mean, what's the name of the game? Final Reality? Final Physics? No, Final Fantasy. The name of the game says it all. Stop your nitpicking, please. I mean, I know I'm a fine one to talk. I do that a lot myself, but it's just kind of pointless. Video game logic, like I keep saying. You know, yeah. Anyways, that's about all there is to do here for now. So, if you were to go to that castle, one of the villagers there talked about, he'd tell you that Astos, whoever this guy is, sounds like a jerk, stole his crown and asked you to go to the Marsh Cave to retrieve it. I forget his exact dialogue. Yeah, that's how you know where you're supposed to go next and what to look for when you get there. But the trip there is littered with enemies that can poison you, and the dungeon itself likewise. So whether you prefer the item or the spell, whichever way you want to remove poison, it would be a good idea to stock up on that, because you're probably going to need it. Anyways, yeah, let's go stop at the end. Okay, and now for the Marsh Cave. Of course, it would be a good idea to have Lightning 2 spells for at least one party member for the boss of that dungeon. See what I mean about enemies that can poison you? Of course, poisoning. Another one of the reasons I could never go back to playing the original. For 2 reasons involving the poison status ailment. 1, every time somebody was poisoned in a battle, they always ended up at the bottom of your member formation, and you had to reshuffle it to the order you wanted them to be in every single time, which got a little tedious after a while. And secondly, every step you took with the poison party member, you heard a very hard to describe, annoying, grinding, screeching sound. God forbid you got poisoned in the middle of a dungeon, and only then realized you had no way of curing it. You had to hear that sound every step of the way until you got back to town. Made a strong case for turning the volume down on your TV set. Criminy. Luckily, both elements have been removed for this version of the game. And again, some of the reasons I could never go back to playing the original again. As much nostalgia as I may have for some of its music tracks, or having the silver sword already at this point in the game, actually, by the way, if you're playing the original, it might be a good idea to use a house item if you have one yet, or a cabin item to save your game. House item would also replenish your MP. But again, like a lot of other aspects of the original version of the game that was bugged, it would restore your MP. But what happened was you use it, it saved your game first, and then you restored your MP back to maximum, whatever that may have been, the levels you had at that point. But if you died, it reloaded the save file, but your MP wasn't restored. So yeah, the way around that would be to use a house item to restore your MP, and then use a cabin or a tent to replenish or to save your game with your MP restored. And of course, in this version of the game, even a tent restores MP and HP both, and you can save your game anywhere on the menu screens anyway, so not really a point anymore now. But yeah, in the original, most definitely. Now, that having been said, the path up above leads to a room eventually leads to a room with some treasures in it that I'm not interested in. Sorry, if you wanted to see a 100% item collection playthrough, but a lot of the treasure chests in this game are too far out of the way and just have weak amounts of gold or items that I no longer need, so yeah, I'm not going to bother with that. Luckily, I've played the game enough times where I know where the items I want are found and can just go right to them, not having to open every chest in the game to find them. Undead enemies, again, the harm spell, Dia, whatever, could be useful against them if the rest of your party don't kill them off before. Yeah, by the way, speaking of the spell charge set up in the original and why it was kind of not just kind of, but extremely annoying, as you only had, well, hold that thought for a second. And again, in the NES original, well, I didn't, only had 2 level 1 at the start of the game, had no of the other magic level spells available. And as you leveled up, you had others you could choose from, but only limited amounts of each of them. Yeah, which wouldn't be so bad in and of itself, but, well, but what made it even more annoying than having a limited amount of them was like level 3, for example, the harm spell is on the same level as heal. So if you use the harm spell too many times, you weren't going to have enough MP for the cure spells, or vice versa. So yeah. Or with, well, same with the red mage, if you use too many fire spells, you weren't going to have enough MP for thunder spells or cure spells since they were all on the same level. Black mage likewise, yeah. So many of the useful spells were all on the same level, so if you used one too many times, you weren't going to have enough MP spell charges for the others, making that whole setup even more annoying, in my opinion. These guys can sometimes have very strong defense for physical attack. So yeah, use fire spells. Maybe not so much these guys, but some of the later palette swaps, or whatever the technical term for that is. Enemies that look like them, just slightly different colors later on in the game. Yeah, them two, well actually no. Okay, never mind. Again, not so much them, but... Gargoyles already. Well, at least these aren't the red ones. Of course, even in this version of the game, even if they were, it wouldn't matter anyway, as I've already mentioned. The Fire 2 spells that can do serious damage to your entire party at once have been replaced by Fire 1 spells. Scorpion, rock you like a hurricane. I mean, no one like you. Never mind. I know. They're not talking about the rock band, the Scorpions. Anyways. Now, one step up figure triggers a fixed encounter with the dungeon boss. Who, in the original, were called wizards, which, even though they kind of look like wizards, the name was misleading since they never use magic spells on you or themselves. They can hit for a ton of damage, especially if they hit your under-leveled, under-armored mages. Of course, again, like I said, Lightning 2 spells could be divine here. And there's the item you need for that castle north of here. Of course, now you have to walk out of here with it, since, well, there is an exit spell, but the game won't let you have it for quite a while yet. Heck, you can't even get to the shop that sells it yet. But this is where the lack of magic could also be a problem in the original. You had to get there, have enough magic to fight the wizard bosses I just did, and still have enough magic to get out with. So, I mean, it could be done, but it was always so annoying. The larger the dungeon, and again, in my opinion, it just drastically cuts into the replayability of the original, especially with this version of the game. In contrast, and you know it's a weak enemy when the black mage can kill it in one hit. Get out of the way, dude. Alright, now could walk back to town. And under normal circumstances, that might not be a bad idea. Rest at the end. And, but if not, well, not that way. A little further north first. Where am I going? From here, down that way leads back to town eventually. Heal. Sorry, I forgot to mention that earlier when I was running through the level 3 magic spells. Heal, unlike a cure spell, heals the entire party. Granted, the first level heal spell is minimal healing, but still the entire party instead of just one. Now, it might also be a good idea to save your game because, well, spoiler alert, there will be a boss battle here against a boss that in the original had a high tendency of using instant death rub spells on you, so yeah. What's so funny? Yeah, sad thing is even if you know that, you still have to fall for it, because you need the item you get for beating him. So, yeah. Think so? Yeah, just try it, buddy. Of course, the first actual boss of the game, I mean Garland, I guess. But you know, he was rather easy, and those wizards, they'll be common enemies later anyways. Well, I beat him rather easily. Of course, again, over-leveled, but yeah. Again, to a degree, sorry about that. I mean, I know people like their strategy in their games, but eh. I mean, boss fights, yeah, sure. But random battles, no. Anyways, more about that a little later. For now, the Crystal Eye, or simply just Eye originally. Yeah. If I recall correctly, I think there was some caption dialogue there that said where you're supposed to take this item in the original. I think. Maybe not, I'm not sure. Again, it's been ages since I played the original this far in, so could be wrong about that. Someone somewhere, if not for sure, someone somewhere told you about that. I forget exactly where it was, since again it's been years since I've needed that information. now go back up to the area where we started the game, sort of. Sail under the bridge. Go away. In the path that I mentioned earlier. Only now there's a purpose to going up this way. Whereas earlier in the game, after that bridge was constructed, at that point there wouldn't have really been anything you could have done up here. Thank God for the fast forward option. Latoya. Okay. What? Okay. My eye! My eye! Dude! Sit down before you hurt yourself. How does she know we have it? She just said she can't see anything. I don't need any potions. I got more than I need already. What's so amazing about it? Well, here the name kind of gives it away what its purpose is. In the NES original, it was simply called an herb, which, after having just recently completed the first Dragon Warrior game where herbs were the healing item of the game outside of the heal spell, I play this, I get this item, and I'm like, dude, I already got potions. What do I need herbs for too? Of course, there, since the name of the item was so generic, if I recall correctly, Matoya here says something about this is the item necessary to revive the prince or something to that effect. But that dialogue has been removed from this version of the game since the item is so obviously named Jolt Tonic. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, this is the item we need to complete that, well, not a side quest because you had to do it, but mini quest, or whatever you want to call it. Now we just need to get back down there again. And this is where a return spell could be divine, but sadly Final Fantasy games have never had that kind of thing. It better for all the crap we went through to get it. Oh, he's awake. That you can really tell by 8-bit pixel sprites. Yeah. Nope. Oh, a mystic key. Now, with this item, there's a few rooms with treasure chests in the bottom floor of the marsh cave. if you want to walk all the way back there, all the way back down to the bottom floor, get those items, and then walk all the way back out of the marsh cave and all the way back here, have fun. I'm not going to do that as the items there aren't worth it in my opinion, but if you want to, again, enjoy yourself, or however you want to put that. Likewise, in that castle where we just fought Astos earlier, off to the side, there's another door that's open that you can unlock with that key if you want to walk all the way back up there. There's also a... Actually, no, that's not. Never mind. No, the only place I'm going to use this key is the one place you have to, that I referenced earlier, much earlier in the playthrough. Back up here in the first castle of the game. To get nitro powder, or TNT in the original. The other items in these chests I don't care for. Again, sorry if that bothers anybody watching, but eh. Now, technically you could have came over here as soon as you got in the ship before even going anywhere else, but at that point, there wouldn't have been much you could have done here anyways without the nitro powder TNT. Get this and that's about it at that point in the game. And maybe talk to the dwarves here, but oh goody, this dialogue. I mean, Gimli never talked like that, at least not in the movies. I don't know, maybe in the original Tolkien novels themselves he did, but in the movies he never talked like that. Yeah, whatever you just said. That's soon? Oh, you mean sound? Yeah, of course he's talking about the sound of pickaxes in the background that was added to this version of the game. Whereas originally you'd read that dialogue and wonder what sound he's talking about, since all you'd hear would be the background music itself. So it's nice that they added the sound effect to make that dialogue make sense. Adam, it's going to be a long time before you get this item. So yeah, just something to remember for much later in the game. This door is locked, so if you don't have the mystic key yet, you ain't getting in there. Somebody had said that Mithril is the best for this point in the game. Maybe for evasion, but for defense it's not. So yeah. Give it to him. Okay. Anyways, talk to him. A canal? What canal? Where are you going? Okay, whatever. Yeah. Again, what's with this dialogue? I mean, it wouldn't be so bad if they had voice acting, but I know the Game Boy Advance probably couldn't handle voice acting. Trying to read this is so annoying. Oh, a little canal you can sail your ship through, extending how much of the world map you can see. Granted, again, you have to have those harbor, docks, ports, whatever, graphically to be able to get off your ship anyway, so yeah. Still not, not like the entire world map is now open for exploration. But still kind of cool nonetheless. There are more places we can get to now. Well, once we get back to our ship to begin with. This is the entrance to the bonus water dungeon once you've completed the main one first. Well, progression-wise, this is supposed to be your next stop. And if I'm playing the NES original, this would be where I go next since I already have an item that I'm going for instead. But that item isn't available yet in this version of the game, so I'm now going to get that item that I'd already have in the NES. Now, somewhere around here, if you look at a screen cap of the world map, we're on the, as of right now, we're on like the eastern or the western border of the world map. At some point along the way, we get to the eastern edge of the world map, loop around. It's always made me wonder if they could do that, have the world map loop and go around. So you go around the world kind of thing. If they could do that in the older games like this one and Dragon Warrior 2, why couldn't they in the newer games like Breath of the Wild? How come you have places where you can't go any further? Really? They could have the world map loop in older games. They sure as hell could have in Breath of the Wild too. Well, Breath of the Wild as well, not the new sequel coming out whenever. mean, I love Breath of the Wild, don't get me wrong, but that's one of the things that bugs me about it. Why do you have exploration debt, you know, on the eastern, western, southern, and northern borders of the world map? You can't go any further. Why? Why can't you just loop around and end up at the southern part of the map, or going west, end up at the eastern part of the map like you do in this game, or Dragon Warrior 2, or... I mean, again, if they could do it in older... Yeah, point made, moving on. Minotaur. Oh, Bull. Well, that's what they were called in the original, simply Bull. Crescent Lake. Okay. Now. Magic level 7. Magic level 7. Okay. So. Cool. The exit spell. Magic level 6. Okay, I can buy this. Nope. Plot wall. Gotta complete a certain quest first, which some people have called a side quest, which might be in terms of actually completing the game. But the exit spell here is only one of many magic spells, armor, and weapon pieces that you will not be able to buy, use, or equip until you complete it. So I don't think it's so optional, but yeah. Do want to get Lightning 3 in the meantime. Oh, he can't. Okay, never mind. Of course, for level 6 magic spells, you had to be at level 16 in the original, or level 26 in this version of the game. So, most people at this point in the game probably wouldn't be anywhere near those levels in either version of the game to be able to buy that yet. Anyways, the reason I'm here this early in the first place, the Mithril Sword, or the Silver Sword originally, that in the original was sold back in Elfheim, like I already commented on. And of course, I think they also nerfed this item. I remember it being much stronger than that originally, but yeah. Again, I haven't played the original this far in since what, 2004, early 2005. So yeah, my memory of the original may not be as detailed as I'd like to think, but yeah, I remember this item being much stronger originally. And just out of curiosity, since I commented earlier about that, yeah, that's what I thought. They do not have gold needle soft potions in this town. I didn't think so. I mean, even in this version of the game, they don't add it as a quality of life kind of upgrade. Probably because they aren't expecting too many people to come all the way over here this early in the game, I guess. Since it is quite a trip out of the way at this point. Almost forgot to equip the stuff I just purchased. Yay! Way to go, me. Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes? Sorry, Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark reference there. Or if you want to keep it within video game references. Snake! Metal Gear Solid. Anyways, back to where, like I said, the next required destination after opening the canal, Melmond. Now, the weapon shop here is a joke. Level 5 spells, which mean in the NES you had to have a white mage or a red mage up to level 12. In this version of the game, it's level 19. So yeah, pretty much the expected level at this point in the game. In other words, since the level 5 spells, well, you don't need them per se, but they definitely help. Now, granted, the life spell in this version of the game ain't as vital as Phoenix Down potions that do the same thing. But if you're playing the NES original where there were no such potions, then yeah, you definitely want the life spell to at least have a chance at reviving party members in dungeons. But again, therein lies the same problem I hinted at earlier with the cure spell, harm spell, and heal all on the same level. So if you use cure too many times, you're not going to have enough spell charge, level 5 spell charges for life, so you could still be screwed. Yeah. But anyways, if you're playing the NES original, I would still recommend getting the life spell. Harm 3, on the other hand, not so much so. Harm 2 and Fire 2 is more than enough to kill almost any group of undead enemies. Harm 3 is kind of overkill, but since I don't need the life spell, having Phoenix Down potions, yeah. And heal 3, or 2 rather. Yeah, heals hit points to the entire party instead of just one person at a time. Now, for the level 5 black magic spells, of course there's Fire 3, definitely want that. Teleport, originally known as Warp, which is... yeah. Anyways, as I was saying, Teleport, originally called Warp. The thing that bugs me is later in the game there's another spell that originally had a different name that they renamed Warp. Why? I mean, if they insisted on having a spell with the name Warp, why not just leave that name on this spell? But the other thing that bugs me about this, teleports you to a previous floor. Okay, so it's like a partial substitute to the exit spell, which you can't have yet due to plot wall. Okay, fine. What? Can't use this either? So yeah, what's the point in this? By the time you can use this, you can also use the exit spell, which transports you entirely out of the dungeon instead of just one floor up. So what's the point in this spell anyways, regardless of what it's called? Stupid. Anyways, that's... yeah. So now... actually, wait a minute. One more thing I do want to do here before talking to people. The armor shop has some useful armor for this point in the game. Knight's armor, or steel armor originally. And silver armlet bracelets for the white and black mage. Granted, the red mage can equip them too, as you see, but they're downgrades to the mithril armor, so yeah. Okay, defense goes up by 10 and evasion drops by 10. I'll take it. Ooh, 11 point, okay. Alright. Now, let's start talking to people here. Starting with this guy, hiding out in the corner of town. Some tells me genius in your mind only. Okay, he's not the slightest bit full of himself. Yeah. Oh, we'll let him sit here and dwell in his own ego, be his own biggest fan for now. Eventually you will have to talk to him, but yeah, for now, yeah. Let him think too highly of himself on his own time. Yeah. You need an item. Yeah, you need to get that item first, which is one of the least favorite parts of this whole game, in my opinion. Yeah, more about that in a little while, actually, as I'm almost to that part. Really? Yeah, we'll be putting this dialogue to the test, so to speak. Of course, there is no item shop in this town. So again, to get gold needle soft potions, you'd have to go back to Elfheim. Which again, you won't need necessarily, but would be a good idea to have just in case. Yeah, we can now actually start working on that. Up until now, you know, we've had to, what, rescue a princess, rid a town of its pirate issues, and wake a sleeping prince. Now we can actually start reviving the crystals. Starting with the earth one. Alright. Of course, the path to the left there, well, we've already heard about the giant. Yeah, actually, wait a minute. Speaking of dialogue, there is one more person I want to talk to back in Melmont, now that I think about it. Somewhere here in town. Yeah. Which one is your father's shop? The weapon shop? Yeah, that sucks. Okay. Yeah, this is the one. You will have to talk to this guy, but to get to him, you have to first find the ruby item to feed that giant so he gets out of the way, and yeah. The sequence of this game is my least favorite sequence of this game due to what it takes to get those items. That path to the left is a dead end until you get the item to feed the giant. Yeah. So for now we go the opposite direction. Well, not really the opposite direction. Now, for the first major elemental dungeon of the game, the Earth Cave. Enemies we've already seen a couple dozen times. Of course, this whole stretch was in the instruction manual referred to as the Hall of Giants, because every step you take from here on out triggers a fixed encounter battle with a group of hill gigas, or giants as they were called originally. Probably meant as an ideal place to do some level grinding if you didn't know or want to have anything to do with the Power Peninsula. But the problem with this, potentially speaking, is if you're going to grind here, you want to stay on the outer edge, because the further you get into the center of the area here, keeping in mind every step triggers another battle, even if you're going the opposite direction to try to retreat. So yeah, if you are going to grind here, stay on the outer edge, so that if you do need to get out of here in a hurry, it's easier to do so. Anyways, this is the way you want to go. That room up there, oh, there's a treasure chest in there for 1,975 bucks. Yeah. Damn snakes, go away. Snakes again. that room, well, the coral sword, one of several swords, like the were sword that was supposed to be strong against werewolf type enemies, the rune sword that was supposed to be strong against magic using enemies. This one was supposed to be strong against river enemies. Of course, in the original, it was bugged, it didn't matter, so I would get this just for the $4,000 resale value, if I got it at all. And from here on out, as I've been hinting at, it's a small chance, but still a chance nonetheless, that you can run into a group of cockatrices. So having at least a couple gold needle soft potions would be a good idea, just in case. A lot of mummies. 2 groups of them so far, not really a lot, I guess. Oh, okay. Of course, they're weak to fire 2 spells, so. They only have like 50 HP. So they're not too difficult, just the possibility of petrification makes them annoying, potentially speaking. Of course. Again, in the NES original, Cloud would now be at the bottom of the party formation since he's poison. And again, one of the things I hate about the NES original, got to be way too tedious by the end of the game, having to do that, reshuffle the formation every time. Alright. Heal up a little bit for mini boss battle. Yeah, you talk too much. Think so? Of course, he's easy at any level. Undead, so fire 2 and harm 2, and yeah. Of course, I think they designed it that way intentionally because now we get that item. And we have to walk our way back out again. So yeah, it's like the Marsh Cave all over again. Walk 3 floors in, fight a mini boss, get the item, and then walk back out with it. Yay. Since the game will not let you have the exits though yet. I mean, there is that door up there in the upper right corner, but that's going to be a dead end for now, so don't worry about it. By the way, these things are supposed to be werewolves. Half man, half wolf. They look like all dog to me. Ogre Chief, GR, short for Green Ogre in the original. Oh yeah, by the way, optionally, Earth Elemental, or simply just Earth originally. Yeah. More snakes. Alright, back outside. Now that we have the ruby, or star ruby in this version of the game, we go this way, the path that was previously a dead end. Okay. Sure. Ah! Bare butt nudity. That was not in the game originally. Of course, kind of funny. In the Zelda game, Majora's Mask, early on in the game, you looked up the clock tower with the telescope from the observatory, you saw the Skull Kid, and after that sequence, wiggled his butt at you. In the 3DS version of that same game, that scene is given the Elvis Presley on the Ed Sullivan Show treatment, filmed only from the waist up. So yeah, they censor it there, Yet they added here where originally there was none. I mean, I know different development staffs for both games, but still, just the idea. Are we going to censor that kind of thing, or are we going to add it where, yeah, make up your minds, people. Anyways, he slowly gets out of the way. And now we can get to this corner of the area, which could have gotten to earlier if we could swim, but no. Water is an impassable barrier, of course. Old game logic. No random battles here, so you get a temporary reprieve from that. And this is the guy someone in Melmont was talking about. Yeah, the one I went back into town to get that dialogue about. Yeah, that's true, we did. How you know about that, I don't know, but... Well, that ain't what the person in Melmont was saying. Yeah. Misinformation, I guess. Okay. Earth Rod, or simply just Rod in the original. And now what sucks about this whole sequence is we gotta go all the way back to the Marsh Cave, or Earth Cave rather, sorry. And then from there go all the way back to where we fought the vampire to get the ruby in the first place. Yeah, my least favorite sequence of this entire game. I mean, it's customary in video games to come up to a roadblock, you need an item from elsewhere to pass. Fine. But why does it have to be 3 floors into the dungeon? Go in, get it, walk back out. Now, why couldn't the vampire boss battle for Ruby be on the first floor of the Earth Cave? I mean, I was kind of hoping that would be one of the so-called quality of life upgrades to this remake. That they'd actually relocate that vampire boss battle to the first floor. But no. What's the word some people use for this kind of thing? Oh yeah, padding. Definitely. Serves no purpose other than to artificially extend the length of the Earth Cave. Make it more tedious than it should be for the first, being only the first major elemental dungeon of the game. Then you add the extremely high encounter rate, only magnifying the annoyance. Anyways, now would be a good time, if you have one, to use a cottage or a tent to replenish your MP. As this time, we're not just going a few floors in to fight a minor mini-boss. No, this time, spoiler alert, we're going all the way to the bottom floor to fight the first main boss of the game. So, yeah. Definitely gonna want, at least a good majority of your MP. Sorry if I'm not too talkative right about now. Go with the way I feel about this part. If I talk too much, I'm liable to curse. And I try not to do that on my videos. Again, I really do not like this stretch. 3 floors in to fight the vampire boss, get the ruby, walk back out, go all the way over to get you, and then all the way back. Why? I mean, I know padding make this dungeon artificially longer than it should be, but artificial difficulty. Yeah. Again, my least favorite part of this entire game. And again, then you add the extremely high encounter rate, and it makes you want to scream every profanity known to man. At least it does for me. Anyways, items, key items, at least that's how you use this in the original. In this version of the game, however, they simplified it. Out of all the things in this sequence they could have simplified, why this? I would gladly have to do this the way you did originally, in exchange for having that vampire boss battle be on the first floor like I hinted at earlier. I mean, seriously, out of all the quality of life kind of things they could have done to this, what? WTF? Anyways, bottom floor, everybody else. Yeah, I know, ages old cartoon gag. Bugs Bunny. Anyways, heal up, since we're about to fight the first major boss of the game. Nobody. Hey, I've seen a statue of you. Yeah, not the vampire as someone. Yeah, I already made that point. Oh, yeah? Okay. Haste or fast. Fire 3 if you have it, if not Fire 2. Again, being that you had to be at experience level 12 in the original, or 19 in this version of the game, some people might not have Fire 3 capabilities yet. Now, in the NES version of the game, he only had 400 hit points. So with the amount of damage we've already dealt, he'd be dead by now. But again, all of the bosses, especially these main elemental fiends, have more hit points than they did originally. Still easy enough, especially when you're as over leveled as I am. I mean, level 19 is probably the suggested order, since that's or the suggested level, I meant to say, since that's the level you have to be at to use level 5 spells in this game, in this version of the game. Anyways, that's one crystal down, 3 still to go. There goes that statue, revealing the entrance to the actual dungeon behind it. Of course, again, I'm not interested in the bonus dungeons, at least not on this playthrough. And that's it for the Earth Cave. Until next time I play through the game again. Not a bad dungeon overall, if not for the padding of that whole thing with the Star Ruby and the vampire boss battle and all that crap. Otherwise, good dungeon overall. Just the vampire boss battle should have been on the first floor. Since you had to... Yeah, never mind, point made about that. Now, well, once you get back to town, or back to your ship, Crescent Lake. I've already been there optionally to buy the Silver Sword, or Mithril Sword in this version of the game. But now is the point in the game where you have to go there, where it's no longer an option. So after a stop at the end, which under normal level circumstances you probably need after that boss battle, sharks, get off my ship! Back in the water where you belong, dude. Level up. Not that I really need any more level ups for a while. Alright, now for the part of town that I never did explore earlier, since at that point in the game, other than maybe some dialogue clues about later events, there would have been no point in going over here. But now, since I've completed the Earth Cave, defeated Lich, and revived the Earth Crystal, somebody here has a different dialogue, which results in the next key item. "200 years? Wow. Well, you could do that, as suggested here. go to the fire dungeon, aka Molten Gold or Gurgru, whatever volcano in the original. But this is the point in the game where it's no longer so linear. Is from here on out you could really sequence break the heck out of the remainder of the game. Which to an extent I am going to be doing on this playthrough. But on the next video. See ya then for what, video 2 out of what I'm hoping should be no more than 2 or 3 videos. Well, probably 3, as I don't think the next video will be the rest of the game, but hopefully no more than 3 videos. Anyways, see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.